You have no idea how sickening this is to us. Forced to live here, alongside the people who destroyed our planet. And then there are people like you, Lucas Kellen, judging us, treating us like we are the criminals.
The PlayStation 4 launch title Killzone Shadowfall released alongside Sony's 8th iteration console in November of 2013, and perhaps owing to the exhilarating bombast of Killzone titles prior, Shadowfall swiftly propelled beyond 1 million sales, capping out at 2.4 million units sold by March of 2014. Guerilla Games have since gone on to stratospheric success, with Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West in the years since the last Killzone title, all but abandoning their futuristic post-war first-person shooter. What they achieved with Killzone Shadowfall is still commendable some 10 years later though. The gorgeous visuals, crafted inside Guerrilla's in-house Decima game engine, still hold up today. Crumbling ruins and glistening skyrise chrome and glass mingles beautifully with verdant citywide forestry. Open-ended level design provides the perfect foundation for non-linear mission structure. Players were free to tackle mission objectives in a multitude of ways, providing deep strategic control beyond the limits of typical FPS titles. Elsewhere, player movement is smooth and snappy, belying Killzone's inherent sluggishness. And new gameplay additions, most notably the hovering drone companion Owl, injected a sense of variety to the endless onslaught of high-octane action Killzone titles were known for. So if Killzone Shadowfall sold well, still looks gorgeous today, and incorporates intriguing new gameplay features, why, a decade later, is it considered a flop, the series dead in the water with no sign of a reboot on the horizon? Well, that high-octane action expected in a Killzone game was largely absent, replaced instead by an emphasis on stealth. When action set pieces do occur, they're largely forgettable, shooting stuff from a moving vehicle, inexplicably free-falling between buildings, and shooting more stuff from more moving vehicles. There is a sense Guerrilla phoned in the latter half of the game in order to keep to launch title timescales. The universe crafted by Guerrilla for this sequel was filled with interest. The premise, one whereby warring factions, now inhabiting the same planet, albeit separated by a giant wall, has plenty of intrigue with potential for in-depth commentary on political and social issues surrounding the game's narrative. At the end of Killzone 3, the Vectans destroy the Helghan homeworld and condemn their populace to refugeeism. Then, to set up Shadowfall's premise, they offer salvation to the Helghan refugees by giving up half of their home planet for them to colonize. The thing is, the Helghans aren't too thrilled with this arrangement, and systematically hunt down any Vectan citizens before they have a chance to exit beyond the wall to their own half-planet. A tense Cold War scenario threatens to spill into full-scale conflict, exacerbated by terrorist group the Black Hands' bomb attack on the VSA headquarters, triggering an exodus of Helghan citizens living on the Vectan side of the wall. However, the continuous bait-switch recasting Helghans as refugees, invaders, dangerous oppressors, and sleeper cells only serves to muddle up the narrative. Sure, adjusting the purpose and intent of the Helghans to support the game's requirement to kill them is all well and good, but it does little to service Killzone Shadowfall's story. The contradictions don't end there either. How is it that once player character Lucas Kellen infiltrates the Helghan half do we see a society in destitution? Sanctions is the game's response, but don't the Helghans possess their own economic autonomy? They have an entire half a planet, presumably rife with natural resources, fertile land, and a skilled workforce to ensure their population lives in comfort. This world, rife with believable promise, is quickly unraveling into the nonsensical. The Vectans and Helghans are both oppressors and oppressed, invaders and invaded, fighting a futile war which they both simultaneously want to happen and wish to avoid. Further along the game's narrative, we discover the Helghan homeworld isn't in fact totally destroyed, and that an antagonist from the previous game is holed up there with a secret army and access to an awful bioweapon. How, why, and for what? How is there significant manpower still present on a planet reportedly deserted by its refugee population? And more importantly, who's financing all of this? How can one bad guy get this operation off the ground? The Helghans, as we're led to believe, are poor. Their population lives in squalor, while a behind-the-scenes army amasses ready to clean the divided planet of the Vectans after the release of their specific race-targeting bioweapon. Suspension of disbelief is a prerequisite to enjoy most media, of course, but the ground rules set out by the narrative premise must make sense in the world as constructed. Killzone Shadowfall fails to stick to its own rules, and alongside a supporting cast of forgettable characters and the aforementioned bland set pieces, the experience by game's end is decidedly underwhelming. There are issues with the emphasis on stealth too, with long reloading times indicative of a game that really wants you to take your time in the shadows. The run-and-gun fun of prior Killzone titles is all but evaporated, and while a studio should always be commended for trying something new to freshen up a series, Shadowfall's stealth portions brought back the inherent sluggishness the gameplay and combat designers presumably worked hard to swiffen up during development. Killzone Shadowfall's multiplayer component was pretty robust though. The experience-driven progression, unlocking stronger firepower and better loadouts of prior Killzone titles was dropped in favor of a skills-based approach. To exemplify this, all weapons for each of the multiplayer's 3 classes were unlocked from the off. Tweakable rules in individual war zones kept the online experience fresh, with the ability to arm players with sniper rifles only, or fight to retain only 1 life, or include a refilling health gauge, for instance. Just a handful of the adaptations to individual servers players can make, with 10 vast, diverse maps to explore, and Guerrilla stating a commitment to continually update online content for years. Then, all the ingredients were there for Killzone Shadowfall to enjoy longevity in the online sphere. For whatever reason though, player numbers dwindled, and Guerrilla nor Sony took steps to encourage more players back onto their servers. Indeed, the only step they did take was to introduce AI bot opponents that can at least replicate the multiplayer experience. But this isn't the same as going up against another human. Plus, enemy AI was poorly implemented in the single-player campaign, and it probably wasn't much better online. Before long, Killzone Shadowfall's servers became a ghost town, with hardly a player taking the plunge. Perhaps owing to the runaway success of the Horizon series, Guerrilla have opted to abandon everything Killzone, instead plowing time, money, and resources into more content for Aloy and her quests through mechanized dinosaur-infested lands. By August last year, Sony and Guerrilla finally pulled the plug. 3 Killzone games were turned off: PS Vita title Killzone Mercenary, VR game MiGs Mechanized Combat League, and Killzone Shadowfall, including online-only DLC Intercept, left the world for good. It's official. The once flagship series in Sony's first-party offerings is no more. It's likely Killzone Shadowfall just came at the wrong time, with elevated expectation levied on a launch title which showcased all the graphical prowess of a next-gen title without incorporating substance or longevity. Perhaps in the world of online multiplayer there's just too much competition. FPS mainstays like Halo arguably turned player heads more than Killzone, and the emerging success of a battle royale formula probably was the final nail in the coffin for Shadowfall. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request: we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.